Let's continue working on our Pong game in Greenfoot. So last screencast I showed you how to make the ball bounce off of the walls and the paddle. So when we run the game, the ball will bounce off the walls, and then if I move over with the paddle, it'll bounce off the paddle. But if you notice here, the ball's going to bounce off the wall, and then my computer paddle up here it doesn't play back. It's a pretty boring game. So in this screencast here, I'll show you how to make the computer play back. There's a bunch of different ways we could do this. The way we're going to use is we're going to use some static integers. So kind of what's going to happen here is we're going to create some integers that track the ball's x and y coordinates. And so remember, that measures from the middle of the ball. Then we're going to tell the computer paddle that it needs to decide, or it needs to figure out, if the ball is to the left of it, or if it's less than its x coordinate, it needs to move itself over this way. And if the ball is greater than its x coordinate, it needs to move itself over that way. Again, there's a bunch of different ways to do this. We're going to use static integers. The only drawback to using static integers right now is that if we put more than one ball on the screen, the computer's going to get a little bit confused. So that'll be okay for right now. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to the ball class and create some static integers. So a static integer is just like a regular integer, except every class, other classes can see it, and it's the same for all classes. That's kind of the difference. So because we only have one ball on the screen, the static integers are okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a static integer by writing public static integer, and then I'm going to call this ball x. And actually I forgot a t here. And if you want to create more than one integer at a time, you can put a comma and we can write another one. So we're going to say create static integers ball x and ball y. And we want these integers just to know where the ball is on the screen all the time. So to do that, we need them to update all the time. And when things happen all the time in Greenfoot, we usually need to do something in the act method. So I'm going to come down to the act method here, and I'm going to write that ball x is going to equal get x, because get x will get the x coordinate of the ball every time the act method runs, which is continuously. I'm going to do the same thing for ball y, and that's going to equal get y, because we might need to use the y coordinate later on in our program. That's all we need to do in the ball method here. So we press compile and we can come back. And how this works again is if we run the game for a second and we can right click on the ball and inspect it, you can see all the fields we're using. But you don't see ball x or ball y because those are static fields. So we click this button, and if you look, the x coordinate is the same for the static one, and so is the y one. So that's how we're using that. So now what we can do is we can go to either the computer paddle class or the paddles class, and we could write a method to make the paddle move around. I'm actually going to do this in the paddles class so that all my code for the paddles is in one place, and then I'll call it in computer paddle 2 later. So I'll go to the paddles class, and now what we want to do here is make a method. So I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to make a method called playback. So I'm going to write public void playback. And now what we can do is just write an if statement that compares the x coordinate of the paddle and the ball. So we're going to say if, and we say get x, and the get x will be the x coordinate of the paddle. So if get x is less or greater than, and now we use the static integer from the ball, we have to say ball dot ball x. And because it's a static integer, what we need to do is call the class name, which is a capital B ball, like this over here, and put a dot and then the name of the integer. So that's how we can kind of talk between classes with static integers. So we're saying if the paddle is to the right of the ball, or the x coordinate is greater than the ball's x coordinate, we want to move the paddle to the left to go get it. So we can write set location get x, so this is the x coordinate of the paddle, and we need to move it to the left, so we're going to subtract some speed and then we need to put a comma, and then the y coordinate. And we don't want to change the y coordinate, so we're just going to leave get y. Now, this is only for the paddle to move to the left. I'm going to let you figure out how to move the paddle to the right on your own. So I'm going to press compile, and we should have no errors in here. And then, we're not done yet. We need to tell the computer paddle that it's allowed to play back. Remember that the computer paddle is a subclass of paddle, so it can do anything a paddle can do as long as we call its methods. So we go to a computer paddle 2, and we say in the act method that we want it to play back. And I just want to have you notice that the paddle, the computer paddle, does not have any collision code in here. All of that's going to be in the ball, and we did that already. So now if I press compile, here's what's going to happen. The ball is going to move down here, bounce off the wall. I'm going to hit it off my paddle, and when the ball moves up and to the left, as soon as it crosses kind of the center of this paddle is going to move to the left to try and hit it. When the ball does hit this wall and it starts to bounce this way, the paddle is going to be stuck over here because we haven't given it any code to move right. Again, I'm kind of just leaving that part up to you. So now I press run here, and the ball starts moving, and I move over here to hit the ball. And now the paddle starts to move to the left, and right here it bounced off the wall, and this is where it would need move to the right code to make it play. Now, just for fun, just to show you that the ball should bounce off of that, let's just, while this is paused, move this over here, and when I press run again, the ball should bounce off of it. So that's how you can make the paddle play back in your Pong game.